Good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning, my good man Achilles. Thank you very much for taking the time, man. And I always start off this stuff with, how did you get into music? When did you decide music
Oh,
was going to be your thing? And
well, look, my parents used to tell me that even as a toddler who could barely crawl, just sit, I was able to pick out the songs from the colour of the labels on the old 45 singles. Dad he loved his music, and so he would every Sunday, he would take the family, what was there in the family, I guess just me and mum, go Samabata or Yanobulo down in the city and, buy the latest Gazanzini single or Bithi Gotsi or, one of those with the leading popular performers of the time. Yeah, so I guess my introduction to music was very, very early through the reproduction medium, the records and tapes and that sort of thing. Dad also had a wonderful reel-to-reel machine, which uh, he broke it or I broke it. I can't remember.
I was going to ask, actually, does it still exist?
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It was a Philips. It was a nice unit. Anyway, and so I was introduced to that technology as well as a youngster, and all through my early life, really. Um, I guess that explains my fascination with the recording medium, and where I ended up, of course, at SBS, in the recording studios and production booths. Um, with music, going back to your initial question, I think my first instrument was an accordion, and I was about 8 years old at the time.
Nice. I did not know this.
Mum bought it for me, yeah. It wasn't a very good one. It was a diatonic. It didn't have the black keys on it, I remember. It just had white keys. So it wasn't full. So it would have been just like a C major accordion that just, you play. But, that would have been my first, from memory, my first musical sort of introduction. When I was 13, I asked for a guitar, and although Dad wouldn't agree to it, Mum ended up buying. They were always at each other's throats about these sorts of things, and but yeah, Mum ended up buying me this guitar. It wasn't a very good one. I remember it was an Amina, was the name brand, and it looked a little bit like a Gibson SG and a Fender Stratocaster. It was a mixture of the two. Very cheap, little instrument, but it was enough to get me to start to play the notes. And again, it began from there, I guess. That's where it's all started. Of course, I loved music at school, and so I would often be found during lunchtime in the music room
Okay.
playing away on a classical guitar or on the piano.
So, what were your first song attempts to learn?
Beatles. I used to love the Beatles. So Let It Be and lots of other stuff. But all the classics. That sort of thing. You know, um, Bachman Turner Overdrive. Hush. Skyhooks. I was listening to and emulating. Of course, the odd Greek song. And then, of course, I started taking lessons. When my mum bought me that guitar, maybe a year later, I started taking lessons. Although I never practiced hard enough, I don't think. Not in that period of my life. I was too busy with girls and push bikes and you know and other things. There were too many distractions. No Xbox, unfortunately, but yeah, too many other distractions. I was quite a solitary child. Because I grew up with health issues and I wasn't able to take part in athletics and those sorts of things. So I reverted to reading and to music and to more, stuff that kind of worked on oneself. Um, I don't regret it at all, of course. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was always the one with the girls hanging around, and you know your mates will often want to hang around as well.
A ladies'
The
man.
yeah, a bit like Leonard Cohen, though a little later, a little too late.
Nice.
Where were we? Oh yeah, so more about school, and I guess schooling was another avenue where I developed my musical appreciation.
Guitar accordion came first. How did because you play guitar obviously. Do you still play accordion?
No,
Okay.
not really. No, I
And
can't.
when did the bouzouki come into?
Ah, the bouzouki came in a little later. I reckon I was about 17. Yeah, I ended up buying one from Valaris. He was importing them from Salonika, which I didn't know at the time. So they weren't Athenian bouzoukis, but they were Salonican bouzoukis. Um, and you know, there are factions, of course. There are people that believe, oh, if you're going to play serious bouzouki, it's got to be, from Athens. I remember it was $1,400 at the time, which seemed like a lot of money for me. Yeah, and I remember the first one I bought actually was faulty. It had a little bend in the neck, which was developing, and after a month of having it, I took it back. And Peter, who was very kind to me, took it and swapped it, and gave me another one. He didn't have to, really, when you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But he was a nice man, that Peter. I believe he's still around and still doing things. I think he's retired, of course, and his son, Ken, now operates Violas, music instruments. Free plug there. And yeah, so yeah, that's I think about 17, Chris.
Cool. And I guess what made you want to get a bouzouki?
But that's an interesting question. I don't. I would have thought that being a migrant in a country like Australia, where we were subjected to all sorts of you know cruelty. Um, and I'm not going to go into it, but I would have thought that I would have preferred to have leaned towards the more Western styles, but no, just perhaps I just enjoyed it. I really liked the sound of the bouzouki, and I liked its role in the band. There was kind of a solo instrument, and there was a lead instrument. And I guess that's where I wanted to be as a youngster. I guess I didn't want to be just, with all respect to bass players and drummers, I didn't want to be just the rhythm section. But we all know how important they can be.
Of course.
When it's not working. Um, yeah. So I guess that was part of it. I guess just being just the sound, just liked the sound, and yeah, and being a guitarist, playing Greek stuff on the guitar just didn't seem right.
Now, as well as being a musician, you touched on it. Yeah, you're also an engineer and a producer. So, how did these things develop? Were these kind of things developing at the same time as um, your musicianship, or how did they kind of come into your life?
In its raw form, musicians from that generation often worked with tape to, to listen to songs and try and work out, what was happening. Some of us who were more adventurous would record from one tape recorder to another with us playing as well to see if we could match, on the recording. So, where I'm
Yeah,
going. So
yeah, yeah.
I was already trying overdubbing, even though I didn't know what overdubbing
It
was.
was.
Okay, at a young age, very, very crude. It was a very crude sort of approach. Nothing like what we have sitting in front of us now on a computer, where you can have 16 tracks at your disposal, and I could record a song on your computer and slow it down, listen to the parts at 50% speed. These were, if we had this sort of stuff in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, I ended up studying at La Trobe University in my 20s. I was a mature age student. I left school when I was 17, 18. I finished year 11 at the time and travelled. I worked and then went overseas for 9 months and just
Yeah.
saw the world as much as I could. And lots of stories to tell there with the bouzouki. The bouzouki was fantastic on my travels.
You were taking it with
Yeah,
you.
I'd taken it with me, and often I would end up with a room for free or some food or at a party, and like it was just an amazing partner to have with you, especially through Greece. The little Estralezo with the bouzouki, and
Would have been almost unheard of at the time.
yeah, we're talking about 1983, 82, and that was a real adventure. And when I got back, I thought, oh well, I've got to do something with my life, and I took up accounting at Footscray Tech, Footscray Institute of Technology. I think I did it for 6 months, and I thought, nah, I can't do this. This is just I'm sitting on my bum too much.
Yeah.
Oops, bottom. And so I pulled out of that course and started looking around to see what else I could do. And there was a course at Preston College of TAFE. It was a tertiary orientation program, it was called at the time. It was a year 12 equivalent, um, which would get you into university position.
Yep.
And so I went for the orientation day, and they told me I had to have minimum grade 3 musicianship,
Okay.
according to the Australian Music Examinations Board syllabus. And if I had that, I could start in the next year. So I immediately went to my cousin John Abetos. He was still in Australia at the time. And I said, John, I've got to learn this, and this. So he gave me the grade. He goes, look, I've got these books. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Just over Christmas, study them. He goes, they're really easy. You'll be fine. And then I sat the test in the new year. I sat the test at Preston College and got in. That was a really, really good course. And finished that course, did really well, and got into La Trobe, which is where I wanted to go. So going back to your question about the production, La Trobe offered a music technology course. They were running all the music software at the time, which I got right into and really enjoyed. They had just built a new recording studio. You
Wow.
couldn't get me out of there. That's where it all began.
Nice. I imagine you've had a hand in production and engineering in your own work. I mean, that kind of goes without saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you've done work for others as well. So, very briefly, who are some of the others that you have worked with
Oh,
in them?
geez. Well, through SBS, there were many and varied from all over the world. Turkish male vocal groups, Polish string quartets. I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, just hundreds. I'm not. I can't. There's no way I could remember any of
Yeah.
their names. Or, these were just jobs that just came in and you did them. In terms of CDs I've produced and helped produce, the Habibis, of course, are some CDs. There's the Repetiti, all the Repetiti stuff, the Cafe Rebetica stuff, which I did the musical direction for at the Art Centre in its first production. Um, there's Ananke um, with Nick Jarvis and Anthony Schultz.
All of which are available on
Yeah,
bandcamp.com.
bandcamp.com, yes, for those who are interested. God, there's so many. Gorani, the male Georgian male choir, um, Canto Coro. Um, yeah. Look,
Hundreds
it
of
goes
songs.
on and on and on. I mean, I can't remember everything. But that's top of my head now. But I've worked in film with Alex Dimitriadis and
Head on.
Head On, yeah. Done many shows, many Speaks and Specs shows. We were the band that would play the nondescript music that they had to guess. And we did about 3 shows at the time. And now we're talking about doing something for the new series as well. So done many things on the ABC, Lucky Oceans, I've done stuff for Andrea Stratton. Yeah, look, I pride myself on the fact that we've sort of broke into commercial television as a Greek band. You know, of course we did Greeks on the Roof. We were the band for Greeks on the Roof.
Effie Mary Custis.
Custis.
Let's say Effie
Yeah.
being Mary Custis's character.
Yeah. Well, Mary Custis, AKA.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Every show cost $1 million.
Wow. I'll hold the SBS and ABC to the side just for the moment.
Yeah.
But what's it like? I mean, when you're doing the production and engineering and so forth for your own project,
Yes.
you know what you want. What's it like steering somebody else's project and kind of bringing their vision to life?
There's a huge responsibility. You're working when you're working as a team, not everybody agrees to the idea. You've often got to convince people. And that's the trick. It's making it appealing to everybody so that we're all on the same ship, rowing in the same direction, or paddling in the same direction. That was the most difficult part of the whole thing as a musical director, because you're always dealing with individuals and trying to bring them on board, Yeah, and especially when you know that there are huge production costs, and the success of the next show will determine whether the show after goes on.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that stuff as well, Look, having said that, Chris, with for example, Cafe Repetica, we were rehearsing that show for 3 months. That's something I wasn't used to, because the Greek element of music here in Australia doesn't get that opportunity, right? Not really. Remember, I'm talking about paid work.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about just rehearsing. I've rehearsed with bands for 3 months, no doubt. With bands, but never been paid for the rehearsal, right? In the early days. And still today, you won't get a Greek rehearsal where they pay you for the rehearsal, unless it's government funded or it's got some sort of backing from somebody. Now this show, Cafe Rebetica and other shows like it, Speaks and Specs, the Bricks on the Roof, for example, that I explained to you how much it was. We used to turn up 2 o'clock on a Thursday, rehearse all the way to 6 o'clock, and then the show would go to air at 7 or 7:30, live to air. So you kind of, that was their process. Now that was from 2 o'clock all the way up to almost midnight, right? So it's a good 10-hour shift. You learned the stuff. You learned what you were going to do, the cues. Like every week I'd have to write out the cues. And what I mean by cues is a bar of four bars of music, which would bring us out of this particular moment. 8 bars of music, which would bring us out of this particular moment. Now, not everybody in the band can read. So, in that week, I had to make sure I'd written the stuff earlier, go to the people that I knew couldn't read, run them over it, or record it for them on a computer and then send them off an email. Yeah. So there's all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of things to think about. It wasn't just me turning up and doing the show. You know, I had to, of course, as bouzouki and often singing, I had to think about my part as well. And think about, All right, what am I going to do? Do I know the cue? Do I remember what the last word is going to be before we have to come in? Because there's no time. There's no one saying to you, right, she's finished her line now. You can do your musical. No, it's none of that.
We're talking about live to air
Let's
stuff.
talk about live to air. So
Yeah.
when we hear Maria Mercedes go, the end of the show, whatever, we just come in. We don't wait for anybody. We don't
Yeah.
look for any other cue. That's it. That's our cue. So, it's all that sort of stuff. So, often I would have, out of camera view, I'd have my little notebook, my notes there, and, and I'd make sure that the band were ready to go. Because there was lots of gaps in between, they would be talking, whatever, and people would start to fidget, out of camera, Right, 5 seconds. So, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so look, going back to your question, there's huge responsibility. It really is. It's not an easy gig. I would much rather sit in a tavern,
Of course.
and play whatever I wanted to play.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, am I getting the value for my time? Probably not. And there are a whole lot of issues there that come up with it. And the legacy. I mean, I've been left with so many wonderful memories. First of all, and like I said to you earlier, it's one day someone will write a book and we'll.
I was going to say it. Have you ever thought of compiling these memories?
We should, I guess. Now we're still alive.
So, yeah, how did you end up getting involved with SBS and ABC?
Okay, that's an easy one. I got married in '99, and I needed to get a mortgage. And I was working like I was working good money, during that time anyway. But they wouldn't accept it. Anyway, so I rang a friend of mine used to work for SBS, George, and I rang George up one day and I said, George, look, I'm looking for some part-time work, with a large organisation, even whatever you can give me. He goes, look, you know what, they're actually recruiting at the moment. Why don't you come in for an interview and see if they take you on. Anyway, without going on too much about it, I ended up being a casual there.
What was your kind of first role as a casual?
Paneling for programs. That was the first role. And then as I got better with software, and because I have my own Pro Tools set up, so I was I was one of the leaders in Pro Tools, in its use.
Yeah.
And once they discovered that, let's get Achilles to do it. Let's get him to do it. And then people from Sydney started asking for me as well.
Nice.
Because they liked the quality of my work, and I was always on time, and all those things. I wasn't afraid to put in the overtime. And then I've moved into other areas as time progressed. I ended up getting my truck license, and was also one of the senior operators for the truck, which is the OB, the outside broadcast band. And the main focus for me by the end of it all was as a producer and as a panel operator and facilitator, really, problem solver.
Yeah. So, how long were you involved with them? No,
20 years.
20 years. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Due to health reasons, you've had to stop.
Yes. Yeah, I've had to fold it up.
Fair enough. Now that you're no longer involved with them, what do you kind of have in mind?
Well, lots of relaxing.
Well deserved.
Yeah. I've been really enjoying my time off, to be honest. I did a course in Plato and geometry last 6 weeks.
Nice.
That was interesting at the Ginotita, at the Greek club, and under Professor Bernie Lewin, who's fantastic. So I'm doing things that I didn't have the opportunity to do when I was working. A lot more reading. Reading. I've got into Plato at the moment. I'm just trying to get through his stuff, which is really heavy. But anyway,
I was going to say, yeah, not exactly light reading.
no, it's not light reading. No, not at all. Yeah, look, whatever comes my way, Chris. I'm not. Uh, I'm happy that there are new people, youngsters, who are taking on the style as well. The Rebetica. The Rebetica has given me a real grounding, a real foundation into the Greek music of today, um, which I wouldn't have received if I hadn't discovered it. I don't think its history and the people behind it and the characters are really, really interesting. They're not. It's before it became commercial, before it became a dollar sign, before it became. Um,
Well, the Betka essentially turned into kind of like art, didn't it?
well, yeah, but that was like 20 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to the stuff from early, the pioneers, like Babakari,
Yeah.
people who came from Boli, the migrants who came from, Constantinople in the 20s, some of them ended up in the EMI recording studios because they were brilliant musicians and could write and read. We think of some people would say that they're like barbarians, but
Mm.
they weren't. They were actually quite worldly and quite, um, you know, um, much more developed, if you could use that word, than a lot of the Athenians or the locals were. I'm trying to remember. Peristeris is one of the people I was trying to remember. And there are a handful of. These people were really, really fascinating. Used to work for the Sultan, and they'd come over as migrants, and then had to redefine themselves as musicians again, and develop a style of music which is a blend of, the bouzouki is a blend of a Turkish saz,
Yeah, yeah.
Italian mandolin. It's a hybrid instrument, really. Um, when it was invented, I can't tell you. It would have been late century before. I just to kind of put the full stop at the end of it all. The stuff, the Bithigotsi and Gazanziri stuff that our parents would have known came back as a second wave of not neo-Rebetica, but Laigo-Rebetica. It's a bit more polished. Chords are a bit more developed. Tsitsani was a large proponent of that style because Tsitsani was he was actually a violinist.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he used to play violin and took up the bouzouki and devoted his whole life to the instrument. And so, yeah, through his developments and those of others as well, like Chioti and Theodorakis and all these people who again borrowed from the Rebetica, right, and developed it into something that was new. Although there's a question about it's the validity, okay, of its style.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't borrow ideas from that's fine. And you know what? It's also about entertainment value, and people are into that now. We don't sit and listen very much anymore.
I completely agree with you in that regards,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a trait that we've lost. Gone are the days where you would sit in front of them, or the wireless, and listen to the stories being told, and the whole family would gather around the wireless. That's gone. It's finished. Yeah. And it was an event. You got that album. I remember when I bought Pink Floyd. Oh my God. I must have played that Dark Side of the Moon album in the first week 100 times.
Let's talk about Anandke.
Sure.
Because listening to that stuff, it's really, really interesting. It's almost free jazz with a kind of Greek tinge to it, thanks to your bouzouki
Input.
input. So yeah, you've how many? And I get that there's 4 or 5 albums.
Yes, and there's one that's called Eurotrash Taksim, which it's the only album where there's about 7 of us playing in there, and 7 I'm talking about classical musicians, and and uh, and quite accomplished. That was done at the large hall at the ABC in the large space. That was a great recording. Um,
How did Ananke come to be?
I think Ananke was definitely Nick Jarvis's idea at the time. He was working with the Habibis, and Nick has a different approach to his music. He doesn't really go for the song
Yeah,
type, repertoire. Um, yeah, he comes from a different background, more classical. Well, when I say classical, a modern, a very extremely modern classical sort of approach, more of an improvised music, really. And he's, a lot of his music is based on the liturgies and on modes and ecclesiastic modes and those sorts of things, those sorts of sounds and genres. And together with his partner Deborah, they do quite a bit of work in that field. So yeah, through Nick really was the introduction, and he wanted to try something with the three of us. We we were together for a number of years and quite a few recordings, um, and seemed to have interest. But what we found was commercially, like when we were approached a blues festival or when we approached a festival which played jazz or they didn't see us as worthy of their festival. I don't think, given that this promoting new music and improvisation, I I sincerely thought that they didn't really have a leg to stand on. You know, are you or are you not um, supporting this type of art? If not, then why are you lying?
yeah.
It's black and white. It's Plato.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no
There's no in between.
there's no in between. Okay, um, and we have that problem here. I think that problem exists um, in Australia, very much so. Uh, if it doesn't sort of fit in with the colour of their flag, or the metaphorical
Yeah,
flag,
yeah, yeah.
then oh, we can't have that. It's not quite right. Whereas you go to Europe, and they're doing all sorts of absolutely wonderful, wonderful things. You
There's
know.
a lot of preconceived notions about
Yes,
what
yeah,
something should and shouldn't be.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the fact that you can go. I mean, when I was in Italy in 2018, you know, classical music was everywhere. The classics are everywhere. You walk in Firenze, and you're walking down with a cheese pie in your hand, and there's Rossini's theatre. Like, come on, these people are born with the
Culture.
culture.
Yeah.
You
We
know,
don't
and
have that here.
so they, when they see something like Ananke, for them it's a refreshing, a new idea. And something that's developed from its classical heritage or its roots or whatever you want to call it, blues, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're quite conservative, really.
I don't disagree in that
No,
regard. Yeah.
yeah, simple as that, really. Yeah, I guess that was the way that started with Nick through the Habibis, and it was a wonderful years. We did a couple of tours, Adelaide, went to Tasmania, um, We tried all around Australia because with Repetiti and with Habibis, we did all over Australia. Well, sometimes twice almost. But with Anankia, there was a real struggle. There was a struggle, and at some point during the early 2010, 2011, we decided that we weren't going to tour anymore. We weren't going to try and push gigs anymore. And we left that. We've got quite a catalogue of recordings, which is great. But just I guess people have moved on, and just you do that. It's projects come and go, and you kind of work in areas where you are new to you, and you learn from those experiences, and then you move on.
My interest when it comes to, especially free jazz, free music, is how much is written, how much is improvised, and how well do you kind of need to know each other's musicianship.
That was a big thing with Anarchy. We usually tended to warm up to a recording, have a thematic idea that was written out usually by Nick, and we'd play on that thematic idea. So there was a little bit of what's the word? A lot of improvisation, definitely, but a little bit of planning in the beginning, in terms of
a skeleton of
a skeleton of an idea, which we would form our ideas from. And then the rest was experience. The rest was, we quickly recognise what mode that piece might bring us in, what chords would be involved in that mode. You just know that as an experienced musician. You don't. It's not something that you have to be taught. I mean, you learn that, of course, but during that process with Dananki, it was, we knew what we were going to do pretty much up front.
So, how many, or were there any moments of stepping on each other's toes and going, "Ooh, okay, that didn't quite work"?
Oh, many times. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the adventure.
Yeah.
That's the adventure. That's where you discover. That's where you discover what works musically and what doesn't. It's like writing a passage in a book. You come back to it, you think, oh, geez, I shouldn't have used that word there. So you change it. And that's rehearsal. That's rehearsal. It's yeah, definitely.
The Habibis actually managed to win an ARIA as well, but from what I can see, you've only recorded 2 albums. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, and the last one was what, almost 20 years ago? Is that right? Have I got my facts right?
Yeah, you're probably right. 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had one person leave who was a crucial member. Her name was Rachel Cogan, and she was the recorder player. She'd ended up finding work on Cirque du Soleil, and then did a lot of travel overseas, and so we took a break. And then she didn't end up coming back.
Greener pastures, I guess.
Yeah. She lived in. She's living in Canada now.
Nice.
Yeah, sort of people take different paths and move on. But look, having said that, after a number of years, we started bringing in other wind players. Like we had a wonderful old guy called Sotiri who's playing clarinet. He was a wonderful player. Then we've got Kelly. Kelly who's with us now. Kelly Dow. And then there are others too. There's a guy called George who's with us now. Look at his surname. But he plays clarinet. He's a wonderful player. So we've started to regroup and try and put some new stuff together. We've got quite a lot of new repertoire at the moment, which we've been working on. And I foresee a CD in the near future.
Okay.
with Irina's been pushing quite a bit to record some new stuff, and we've already started recording some material.
Nice.
So yeah, look, it has been a while, but then it's been because there've been, there've been these interruptions, and it's just a natural way of the world, I guess.
Life gets in the way, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, it's just the way it is. But wherever we go, it seems people want to hear us, and while there's still interest, we'll play.
Nice.
If people stop coming, then
We'll know it's time to stop.
we'll know it's time to stop. Yeah.
And yeah, did manage to win an ARIA, and
Yes,
for those listening, ARIA is kind of, I guess you could call it the Australian version of a Grammy,
that's right.
or something along those lines. And you were up against some pretty decent competition when you won that award. So yeah, including Xylourus Ensemble.
That's right. Exodus Ensemble. I was there. Yes.
So
And who
yeah,
was the other one? There was one more. Was Exodus, and there was another one.
there were about 5 or so in the category that got nominated, if my memory serves, but yeah, I can't remember all of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think they went. It's probably because there was so much production in that CD, Intoxication. It was really well produced. Although I listen back to it now and I think, certain things about it which I don't like, but that's just me, And I'm talking about the mix or that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I can see why. I can see why the judges would have picked it because out of the lot, it really had with good production values and it had good songs, lively, up, So yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to actually go in person to pick it up because the manager that we had at the time was, yeah, she got it all wrong. That's another story.
Okay, so there's no actual award sitting on
I
any
don't have
shelf?
it now. Irini's got it.
Okay.
We have to share it,
Oh,
unfortunately.
really? Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, no, we've got one each. No, we've got one
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that we share amongst the 4 or 5 of us. It just seems ridiculous to me. But it's a heavy thing and it's very dangerous.
When did you find out? How did you find out? How did you feel when you heard about it?
Ironically, I was gigging at Piraeus Blues in Fitzroy at the time, and which was a lovely restaurant owned by a Cretan couple, Susie and John Rurakis. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from Irene. So as soon as I had a chance for a break, I call her back. She goes, "Oh, we've just won an ARIA award." I didn't even know we were nominated. Okay. I go, "Oh, really?" She goes, "Yeah, what time do you finish work?" I said, "Oh, about 11. She goes, "Oh, we'll come pick you up and go out for drinks." Anyway, the martinis were flying heavy that night. I tell you what, I slept in and I had a bad headache the following day. But look, yeah, it was great. It's great, Again, another milestone.
If you're going to celebrate anything,
Yeah.
yeah, an award like that is well
It would
worth
have been
celebrating.
nice to have gone, but that's another story. Yeah, it was the ARIA Award. We also played in the AFI Awards live to air in Sydney,
AFI, sorry?
Australian Film
Film
Industry.
industry.
Yeah, but that was a live gig, and that we did that. Yeah, so many when I think about that. Yeah, just things. You're right. I really have to sit down and start notating, even in point form,
Yeah,
what I've done. It's great. It's been a full life, Chris. I don't have any regrets. It's great.
sounds like it, my good man. So yes, we did touch on the Cafe de Betica.
Yes.
Um, the show got some pretty impressive reviews, and you were kind of the musical director of the show. So yeah, how did you come into that project? And yeah, again, what's it like, kind of steering something like that, which is essentially somebody else's project again, and bringing somebody else's vision to life?
That was. I'm sure you're aware of a gentleman called Stephen Helper. He came and saw us one day play. We were playing at the Railway Cafe in Brighton.
So obviously he had heard about you.
He had heard about us and heard about Repetica, and was interested in the style. And this was early 2000, 2001, 2. Anyway, it was early in the beginning of the century. And he had this idea to put on a show with Repetica music. And are we interested in, developing the idea? Sure. So he organised quickly for funding for a development grant. Before I knew it, I'm talking about 3 or 6 months, we were at the VCA in one of the rehearsal rooms.
Sorry, VCA, you're going to have
Victorian College of the Arts.
Okay.
And we were with scriptwriters, and we were throwing ideas backwards and forwards over the table. And then we started with characters. We thought, okay, what characters could we have in there? So Repetiti, the band, was there from the seeding of the program.
Wow.
Okay, including the writers as well, he didn't have the story.
I wasn't aware of that.
No, it was developed here in Melbourne, and it was written with script writers and people who got funding to help develop the script. I'll give you names too, but I can't remember the top of my head now. I'd have to source them for you. And there were Angela Costi was in there, Lena Costumas, quite good writers, and of course Stephen himself. And then they started bringing in actors, and we tried workshopping things. So it was a huge process, and that process happened over like 2 years, 3 years.
It took that long? Wow.
Yeah, but it was on, and then it would be off for a little while. It was on, and then be off for a little while. So you'd go away with the ideas and come back with a new script, updated, try things out. It was all that way. And Stephen is a consummate professional. Yeah, everyone was paid properly. It was all done through the books. And that's how we ended up in Cafe Repetica. We ended up because we were part of the writing team, part of the music production team. Because Stephen realised that if it's going to make it work, it's got to have an element of authenticity. And I don't think he could do that by himself. I mean, he could correct me if I'm wrong. I think the working as a team between writers, musicians, really developed what became Cafe Repetica and its success. It was a combination of lots of things.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great. That was a really good show, and it left me with a great experience of what something like that is to put up right from its inception. When you're thinking about, Sondheim, or you're thinking about Cats or whatever, you think, okay, well, that's kind of a written script, and you go learn it, write these musical bits. But we're talking about something that was just a germ of an idea and developed from a loving of a particular style, and then
developed into a full-blown production.
Yeah, and yeah, it was successful. It was really good. I thought, everybody pulled together, and there were ups and downs. Oh yeah, there were always ups and downs. Yeah, miss the old guy. He's in New York now. He's working on a show called Billy Todd or something. Yeah, there you go.
Last
question.
Essentially, you've paid tribute to Billy Courtis, you've paid tribute with Common. Why do these people kind of need to be paid tribute to? What is it?
Good question. I think that The reason I like to play, and most of us like to play these people and their music, is because they're the bridge that would lead the listener further back if they want to explore just that little bit more. Okay? It's hard to just say to you, it's hard to say to most people, have a listen to this by Habibis, the classic. Most people listen to it if they're not used to the, the edginess of it, it's the crudeness sometimes of the lyric or even of the way they're playing. It's not modern bouzouki playing, it's early bouzouki playing, and it's real highlights the development of that instrument over the last 100 years. So I think that for that reason, I love to play that Epikotsu, the Mitsaki style, because they were able to encapsulate the style of the Repeti and many of its themes, but bring it in, they just make it a bit more modern and a bit more palpable for the general community. And I think that's what brought on its success. If I told you to listen to Svakamaki, and see and discover its roots into Greek music, you'd have trouble because, I mean, there may be a Svakamaki song that actually has a reference to Repetiti or whatever. I don't know. I don't never listen to all his material, but in most cases, it wouldn't lead you back that far into the Greek music history. It's got too much. It's been influenced too much by the Western media and by modern music. So yes, this is the reason why I like playing that style. Also, it's an introduction for even for musicians, local musicians, to see the beauty of the style of that style and its earlier influences. Um, but, many musicians here are not that familiar with Rebecca.
You're right.
They're more interested in playing in a wedding band. And good luck to them. That's fine because that's where you're at. That's where you're at. Yeah. But if you're interested more in its history and that sort of thing, then that's where you would go.
Nice. Thank you.